back to Code for Couples. This is Cindy Doyle. I am your host for the podcast. Elia, wife, licensed professional counselor. That's who I am. I want to say sorry for not having a podcast last week. I seem to be saying that a whole lot. You may hear it. I am a little bit nasally, and that is because we had like a giant sandstorm come through. It was the Saharan desert sand or something, and it was horrible. I'm telling you, this stuff was like, I woke up and I thought my throat was like somebody had clawed it because it was so scratchy, and I'm still just kind of allergy based nasally. So no Saharan sandstorm anymore, because that was horrible. And I thought it was like throughout the whole United States, but then I found like it just sat over Texas and some of the South. So, you know, did you get impacted by this sandstorm? It was horrible. Let me know, because it was awful. So today, what we're gonna do, we're gonna talk about one of my least favorite words out there, which is nagging. You're a nag. Yeah, that. I hate that word. And it came up over the last couple weeks, and we're going to talk about that. I was reading Adam Davis's new book, new devotional book, by the way, which is coming out still. It's called Bulletproof Marriage. It's a devotional. I am not getting paid for this, by the way. It's a devotional book, and it has like a scripture and then a prayer, and then it also has like some really sound advice. But Adam had asked me to review it, see what I thought, and give him some feedback on it. So I did. And as I was going through, there was a couple of places where he used the word nag or nagging, don't nag. And I just, like, every time I came across that word, it was like nails on a chalkboard. I wanted to like hit something and vomit at the same time. It's so visceral. And I think a lot of women have that same, like, we want to attack you if you call us that. So there's that. And I asked my husband about it too, and he said, oh no, that has a really negative connotation. So I'm not the only one out there that believes that word has a negative connotation, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So that's not a word that we really use in our relationship. So I found it odd that a couple weeks ago it came up. So I don't know if like I introduced this word, thanks a lot Adam if you're listening, by bringing it up to my husband's attention, or if it's just in his brain and he just doesn't say it. I have to ask, because it might be that he thinks that I am and just doesn't say anything. So the scenario was that we're at Kroger, and he had asked me to remind him to get the propane tank exchanged. So it's that gas tank that's underneath the grill, and we've run out. Sometimes we keep two on hand, but so we're in the checkout line, and we left the tank in the truck, and I'm like throwing groceries on the belt to get it done, and little chaos ensuing. And I probably, admittedly, in a 45-second time span, said, hey, don't forget about the propane tank. Hey, did you tell her about the propane tank? Hey, did you pay for the propane tank? Hey. And my little darling, no, my big, he's not little, my 6'3" husband, looks at me and says something like, quit nagging me, I heard you. And it's like that tone of voice and like that look in his eyes where he's gonna, like, if I say anything, he's gonna get really pissed. So I didn't say anything, but in my head I was telling him off, but I wasn't going to do it in the middle of the Kroger in the checkout line. So there was two things that kind of did that, like, quit nagging me. I'm thinking, I wasn't nagging you. What nag? I don't do that. And just the fact that he would even say that, like, it has so much negative energy. And I've heard other men call their wives nags or say that they nag or they're nagging. But weirdly enough, I've never heard a woman say the same thing. I've never heard a woman say, my husband is such a nag, or he nags me all the time. Like women, what we tend to do is we say that our men are controlling, they're control freaks, like the control comes up. So today we are going to talk about nagging, control, criticism, and complaints. So those are the 4 words we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to give you some insight and some solutions on what to do. So you ready? All right, here we go. So in the years that I've been married, I do not recall him ever in the past saying that I was nagging him. So like I said, I don't know if he's been thinking this in his head and like we need to have a conversation. Maybe it's annoying, maybe I don't do it, or maybe I just introduced the word. Who knew? So there's that. I looked up the definition nag. So I don't know why, but I got all dictionary on this episode, so stay tuned. So I looked up the word nag. Okay, so nag. The definition is annoy or irritate a person with persistent fault finding or continuous urging. So maybe I was technically nagging because I think I was continuously urging something. So I was obviously annoying him because that was obvious when he confronted me in the checkout line. So I guess I have to say I was nagging. Was I continuously, I can't even say that. Was I continuously and persistently finding fault? No, but maybe because I kept saying, take care of the tank. So maybe, okay, I admit that perhaps what I was doing could be called nagging. Ah, God, ugh, I hate to admit that because I hate that word. So I mentioned that women don't seem to use this term a whole lot when it refers to their guys. Like I don't hear women in my office or personally go, oh, my man is such a nag, or he's so nagging. Like it just doesn't, it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds weird to me. I don't know, maybe it's being in the South. If you use it on the East Coast, West Coast, let me know. But I do hear women say that, God, he's so controlling. Now I've talked about control in my previous podcast, and I've talked about it in terms of why many first responders have to feel that sense of control. And I'll have Whitney do the link below, which is, that podcast was control versus capitulation. So, which is a totally different topic. So I'm not including control as a need for first responder world in this. I'm just looking at the general context of our relationships. Okay. So leave that part out. We're just going to use control in a global sense here. All right. So shoe on the other foot in the line at Kroger. If my sweet husband would have been saying those same things to me. So if he would have been like, hun, don't forget about swapping out the tank. Honey, did you tell her? Do we need to pay for it? Or whatever the hell I was saying. And it was something like that, right? I would have thought in my head, shut up. Shut up. Quit being so damn controlling. Can't you just trust me? I got it. I got it. And I don't know that those words would have come out of my mouth because I am a quiet person when it comes to confrontation. I will just look at you. And I get that look and I get that raised eyebrow kind of thing, like, don't be doing that. And so I probably would have just given him the look. It might have come out of my mouth, but it's probably the death stare. So that says, I got it. So which is kind of what he did to me. So there you go. So maybe there's a little bit of control on my part there, right? But I'm a nag. He's a controlling freak. Not really, but you know what I mean. So I looked up control. Why not? I'm into Webster's this time. So control is the power to influence or direct people's behavior or the course of events. Okay, that seems pretty accurate. If I was in those shoes, I would have felt like he was trying to control my behavior, right? I would definitely say he was trying to influence me in what I was doing. So technically, I could say that was controlling if he would have done it on me, right? Or if he would have done it to me, not on me. You know what I mean? But then I think about those words like nag and control, and it feels like they're synonyms, kind of like they're related. They connect in some way. So I pondered this, and it's like, okay, couldn't someone want to have power or influence or direct people's behavior or the course of events, right? And then implement the technique of annoying and irritating a person with persistent fault-finding or continuous urging in order to have that influence. Right? So basically what I said is we're all controlling nags. At various times in a relationship or any relationships, we probably can be continuous controlling nags because, you know, maybe it's that I want to go eat Chinese food and I want to influence you. And so I might go, come on, come on, come on, let's go eat Chinese food. So, I mean, seriously, we can all be controlling nags at various times. Let's admit that, okay? There you go. So, let's break it down a little bit more. If we all understand that we all can be controlling nags at some point in time, let's break it down a little bit more. Let's talk about control. So, the definition of control tells me that someone wants to have power or influence over my behavior. Well, initially, my reaction is, ugh, oh no, you didn't, or I got control, right? And I want to say, like, that's bad. Like, they shouldn't have control and power and influence over my behavior, right? But, you know, sometimes it makes sense. Like, if you listen to me with any consistency whatsoever, you know probably what's going to come up during this, which is, can you guess the word? Get curious. I've been told, like, you keep saying that word. Yes, get curious. So if I step back from the situation that I'm feeling controlled in, like, there might be a reason, right? So the same thing can be said about nagging too. Like, is there a reason for that behavior? All right. Let me give you a totally different scenario that's like real in my world, okay? So on nights when my husband is home and we're going to bed about the same time, now if he's already asleep, it doesn't happen, right? But if we're going to bed at the same time, he asks me, I kid you not, every single time, did you shut the garage door? Yes. Will you turn on the house alarm? And I'm telling you, like, in those moments, I want to, like, just give him to the death stare again, right? Because my thought is, are you effing kidding me? Of course I closed the garage door, and I will close the garage door. Now, I have forgotten once, I admit. And the alarm, like, I'm not such a big deal. Like, turn on the alarm to me, I'm like, meh, whatever. But he really likes the alarm on. So, but him telling me every single time, like, I can go so many places with that, but it doesn't necessarily feel good. And probably my initial gut reaction is like, you know, kind of like a cat, like wanting to get irritated and angry. And like, I feel like, quit telling me what to do. Right. So that makes sense. Like, I feel maybe a little bit controlled, or I can flip it around and say, I feel nagged, right? One of those two things, but I don't say, quit nagging me, or sometimes I do say, quit trying to control me. But if I step back from it and I get a little curious, then I can say, okay, no, I get that. Safety, and I do get this. Like, safety is a big concern for him. I mean, he's a cop, right? He's a police officer. He sleeps with a gun by his bedside. He has one under the bed. He probably has two in his nightstand I don't know about. So, you know, okay, safety, I get it. And it makes sense that I feel a little controlled because he's trying to influence my behavior, right? But what he doesn't do is think, hey, you know what would be fun tonight? I'm going to bug the crap out of Cindy, and I'm going to try to control her and tell her what to do again tonight about turning on the alarm and closing down the garage. So why does he do it if it's not to control my behavior? If he doesn't think like, oh, yes, I need to remind her to do this. Maybe he does. So that's the control part. The nagging, okay, so I admit a Kroger line, I was being irritating. So once again, it's what's behind that, what's underneath it. Let's go to a situation that I have had that I have totally felt like a nag, which was when my husband was supposed to sign up for some classes and he was procrastinating, and he kept procrastinating. And I kept reminding him that he needed to sign up for these classes. So like weeks, days, months, okay, days, weeks, months, you get what I mean, like went by, and I kept reminding him, and I was feeling like a nag. And he was sweet. He didn't take it like I was being a nag. He would just say, yeah, I know, I need to do this. But still, it's like, why do I feel compelled to make sure he signs up for the class? Why does he feel compelled to get me to shut the garage? Why did I feel compelled to make sure that he knew about the propane tank? So we have the why, and we're gonna put a push pin in that. Is that a thing still? We're gonna put a thumbtack in that. We're gonna put that over to the side just for a second. And just for a second, I want to talk about like a kissing cousin to those words: nagging, control. Which that kissing cousin is the word criticism. It's a third word. Remember, I said I was going to talk about criticism. So, oftentimes when we fail to have influence over somebody's behavior, or when somebody feels like we're finding fault, right, they hear it as criticism. So if I'm trying to influence your behavior, i.e. have control, or if I'm trying to persistently say something, because really I'm trying to influence your behavior, right? Then what comes out is maybe I wind up criticizing you because you're not doing it, or maybe you feel criticized. I hope that makes sense. So what did I do? I went to the dictionary again. So criticism. Criticism is the expression of disapproval of someone or something based upon perceived faults or mistakes. So sometimes, most of the time, when we're nagging or when we're trying to control the situation or influence somebody, we're probably going to have to deal with some criticism. Like we either feel criticized by that person, or we might criticize the person because they're not doing what we told them to do, right? I mean, come on, we do that, right? So now I'm disapproving of that thing that you're doing or not doing, right? I hope that makes sense. So we have like the nagging, the control, kissing cousin criticism, and it comes out that way. So I don't necessarily feel criticized when my husband reminds me to shut the garage door, but there is that little tinge of like, can't you just trust me? Which, is criticism, right? He's criticizing the belief that I can take care of something in a way. Or like he can't take care of the class that he needs to take. So I hope that makes sense, like how they're related to each other. And, are there times, think back personally, when you're dealing with criticism or criticism or controlling or nagging, like if you think, gosh, she nags me about that all the time, what is it that she's nagging you about? Or if you feel controlled about something, what is that? And getting curious about it. So things that I hear: nagging, household chores, help, taking out the trash, controlling, like what time are you going to be home? I've talked about that before. Where are you spending money? Like there's reasons, like every behavior has a reason. I say this a lot in with my clients, like every behavior has a reason. So if we get curious about that instead of going into criticism or feeling criticized, that helps a whole lot. So just a short little caveat here. I want to make sure that, sometimes control and criticism can be really unhealthy. And we aren't talking about abusive situations. Like if you're in a situation where you feel unduly controlled or unduly criticized or nagged, then you want to seek professional help, okay? So I just want to throw that out, that I realize that they can be a symptom of a bigger problem, but that's not what we're talking about today. If that's your situation, then please sidestep this and go talk to somebody, okay? All right, so let's get back to what we're talking about. So I've been building this up a little bit. Like I've been saying, like, what's the why? Why do I nag? Why do I feel the need to control? Why am I criticizing, right? Here's the curiosity part. One of my favorite words, you know this, about why somebody does something. So there's two things we're responsible for here. As partners, there's two things. We're responsible for being curious about our stuff, like ourselves and our stuff, like why are we doing something? And the second thing is we're responsible for being curious about our partner stuff and their reason for doing something. So it's not just, well, you said it, so that's your responsibility. No, as a partner, like, you're in it together, right? So if I can help my partner out with something, or if I can approach it differently, then that's part on me too, all right? So we have 3 words: nag, control, criticism. We're gonna talk about the why. Why do these things happen? Well, like I said, every behavior has a reason. So, why? Why do people nag? Folks, the number one reason that people nag, specifically women for sure, but the reason why people nag is because they don't feel heard or ignored. And it's very possible that, like, you feel nagged at work or at home, but it's because they don't feel heard or they feel ignored. So what happens is people keep repeating themselves. They say the same things over and over again in a different way, with more intensity, louder, more frequency, and you get annoyed because they keep saying it. But they keep doing that because nothing's changing, nothing's happened. That influence is not occurring in regard to behavior. So, we wind up feeling criticized or annoyed or irritated because of the nagging, but are we a part of the problem? If we're the ones that are experiencing the nagging, what are we responsible for? So keep that in mind. Like when you're getting curious, there needs to be a curiosity about why that person is nagging, and getting curious about, like, okay, is there something I'm not doing? Am I missing something involved to nagging? Let's talk about control. The main reason I hear that people control is because there is a need, somebody has a need or an emotion that is not being expressed. So there's some kind of need that they have, or there's some kind of emotion that is not getting expressed. So I hope that makes sense. Nagging is about nagging is about feeling not heard or ignored. Control is about a need or a feeling unexpressed. All right, so let's go back to my example and let's talk about the Kroger thing, right? So why was I being so insistent? Why was I repeating myself? Well, one would be probably because I wasn't feeling heard, or I didn't think that he heard me. Maybe I didn't hear the acknowledgement. Maybe he did acknowledge me, but in the course of me putting things on the belt and taking groceries out, I missed it. Who knows? But I was stuck. I got stuck in a loop, and part of my thought on that is I didn't know if he heard me, and my concern was leaving Kroger in 110-degree heat and him being irritated that we didn't do it. So probably part of it. So also, if maybe he would have gotten curious about my reaction, then that might have changed the situation. He might have said something like, gosh, seems like you're feeling kind of anxious, overwhelmed, or, what's going on with her? So getting curious about that. Let's take the second situation about sounding the alarm. Now, I mentioned that I know safety is one of his concerns. So my guess, if I get curious, I haven't asked him, but my guess is that, he fears I'm going to forget and that then I'm in harm's way and that he's going to fail in some way. I'm going really deep with that one, but that's part of it. And the last one, my last situation about the classes, why was I nagging? And for some reason, I felt like it was my job to make sure that he did that. I don't, that's the best I can do with that. Like, for some reason, I was taking that on. I didn't want him to fail for some reason. So we have to get curious about why we're doing the behavior, but also get curious about our spouse's reason for doing the behavior. And I hope that makes sense. Like, we have responsibility for both sides. So we've talked about nagging, we've talked about control, we've talked about criticism, we've talked a little bit about getting curious about all those things. There is one more word in my title here, which is the final piece of this, and that word is complaint. So I defined everything else, so I might as well define complaint, right? So complaint is a statement that a situation is unsatisfactory or unacceptable. So keep in mind, it's a statement that a situation is unsatisfactory or unacceptable. I'm not complaining about a person. I'm complaining about a situation. That's really important, okay? So how does this all go together? Well, as partners, we are responsible for getting curious, right? If we feel like there's nagging, if we feel like we are nagging, if we feel that we're being controlled or somebody's trying to control, or if somebody recognizes I'm trying to control the situation, if you recognize that there's criticism, then one of the solutions is to be able to lodge complaints, like a complaint department, right? Like if you go and you want to file a complaint with, a store, you're talking about this situation was unacceptable, right? So you're lodging a complaint against the situation and not the person. All right, let's roll this out of what that would look like. All right, so here I am, I'm in Kroger, and I'm repeating myself over and over again. I am nagging, and my husband says, she is nagging. What is going on? I don't like this. So if he would have lodged a complaint, that complaint could have looked something like, honey, you keep repeating yourself. I'm getting irritated. I need you to stop. I know, easier said than done. But the reality is that I would have responded to that. If he would have said that to me, I would have been like, well, shit, sorry about that. I'll shut up. That's good. Or I just need to make sure that you got that. Do you got that? Yes, I got it. All right, I'll shut up. Like, I would have responded. So by lodging a complaint, it allows an action step to occur. It takes the emotion a little bit away and it allows us to solve the problem. Let's look at the class situation. And this is what I wound up doing in that class situation. And what I wound up saying was something like, I'm feeling responsible for you finishing this course, and I can't keep doing this. I need to know you don't hold me responsible. So I was lodging a complaint, like I'm taking on this responsibility. I don't want it anymore. Do you got this? And he said, of course, no, that's not your responsibility. And I was like, okay, I'm dropping it. So I lodged a complaint. That was one that we were successful on. So I mentioned household chores, right? That's something that I hear a lot of people going, oh my gosh, she just nags me. And so let's think about that. Let's make up an example here. Let's say that somebody is nagging you about picking up the house, folding laundry, doing something like that. So how might that roll out? Well, first of all, you're probably going to have a visceral reaction. You're probably going to get irritated that you're being nagged, right? And I might be irritated that I'm having to nag you about this, right? So we got to realize, okay, something's going on here. If I change tactics and I quit pestering, I'll just say that instead of nagging. If I quit pestering or nagging and I lodge a complaint, maybe that will be heard differently. So my complaint might be something like, honey, I know we're both busy. I feel really overwhelmed with getting all the chores done. I need your help. And hopefully there's a response to that. But what happens, once again, what happens if nothing changes, then I keep in a loop. I keep stuck, right? I'm going to keep nagging. So keep in mind that if somebody's nagging or there's a complaint or there's a control situation, like, you both have a responsibility in this. So just because somebody came to you and said, I'm going to lodge a complaint, doesn't mean that you're off the hook. It doesn't mean like, well, you're doing the nagging, so you're the one who's in charge of making sure that this gets done, or you're the one who's controlling, so it's your responsibility to fix it. Okay, so you both have responsibility. This is a team, right? So you both have responsibility. So if I'm the one that's feeling nagged, I'm not off the hook. I have the responsibility to say, maybe in my head, I'm feeling really nagged right now, or I'm feeling really criticized right now. I wonder what's going on. Does she have a complaint? I know it's hard. Like, in the moment, that doesn't cross my mind. In the moment, I'm like, frickin' blah, right? That's the way we are. But if we can step back for just a minute or go back, right? So sometimes we have these situations and we have to go repair, we have to fix it. So if we can do that, then it allows us to handle it differently. So we need to learn how to lodge a complaint, and we need to allow complaints to be okay in our relationship. So I really suggest that you talk about how to lodge a complaint with each other and what can make them okay. So does there need to be something safe? Does there need to be a safe space to lodge that complaint? Is there a way I approach you when I have a complaint that works better? You can listen to, I have like Soft Startup podcast in there. Whitney can probably tag that as well. But if we can do that, we start to solve problems rather than have that criticism, nagging, controlling, which eventually leads to contempt and all kinds of bad stuff, right? So learn how to do that. And how wonderful would it be if we could just resolve problems, talk how we're feeling, as opposed to just nagging and controlling and complaining, right? So let's review really quickly. So we have nagging and control. Usually there's something underneath them for ourselves, for our spouses. So when you find this going on, you need to get curious about your own behavior and your spouse's behavior. Okay? Finally, work on staying out of criticism and lodging complaints instead, because when we lodge complaints, we solve problems and we make movement. Now, once you've heard that complaint, it might resolve, it might need some compromise there, but at least you've heard it. And that makes the person be able to move forward, that you've heard the complaint. So if you got something useful today that you think that can make your relationship and your life better, be sure to subscribe to my podcast. Leave me a review, please. Share it with your best friends so they can have a Code 4 relationship as well. Whitney's going to make sure that she links all the links that I mentioned as far as the podcast down below. You can check out the previous episodes as well as the show notes at code4couples.com/podcast. And that's the number 4. So code number 4 couples.com/podcast. Catch up with me on my social media. Let me know what you found helpful in today's podcast, or hey, let me know what your biggest complaints are, and maybe next time I can address them in future podcasts. Until then, love each other and keep it code 4.